Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and this episode is on Albert Einstein. This is where Kuntarkis is drawn to and finds Albert Einstein in the spirit world.
I came across someone last night, and it was 7 minutes past 4 when I returned. And I think I could have been about 40 minutes or 50 minutes if I look at human time with this particular person. And I remember being in another experience, and I didn't want to leave, but I was literally being drawn out or guided out of that situation. And I remember going through like a wall, and the wall was like, not rubbery, it was like solid, but it was like a curtain, a thick curtain at the same time. And I went through it, and I just saw nothing but darkness. And I said, oh, why am I here in this darkness? And somebody said, just wait, just wait. So I did, maybe a minute, 2 minutes. And then everything came clear. A picture all appeared, and the light appeared, and it was like Earth, being on Earth. And what I saw in front of me in the distance was beautiful landscape. And I started walking. I feel as if I was being pushed to walk. And in the far distance, it sort of went up a little. I noticed that there was someone either standing or sitting. So I walked quite quickly. I walked and walked and walked, and I was getting more happier, smiling. But I don't know why I was smiling. And then I got about within 30 feet of this person. And I stopped for a moment, and I looked. And then suddenly a voice speaks out. Ah, you found me, it said. You finally found me. And I looked at this person, and the person had grey, fluffy hair, a bit curly, a bit white, and they looked a bit frail. And suddenly he turned, and you're not going to guess who was sitting there. Do you think you could possibly guess? Before you guess, I'll say something. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one.
Einstein.
Yeah,
Of course,
Einstein,
of
Albert
course.
Einstein.
Wow.
And he was sitting there, and he looked at me, and he smiled. And I said, Mr. Einstein. He said, no, please, call me Albert. All my friends call me Albert, and I haven't got very many. He said, when I was on Earth, he says, in the body, he said, I had a lot of humiliation. He said, I always knew that I wasn't just a human. And he said, you opened up the door to my own truth, my own reality. And I really appreciate that and thank you. And I said, I'm sorry, but what are you talking about? He said, I know you aren't aware of it, but you did it at a much, much deeper level. He said, I'm an Akaron. I never, ever woke up to that. But he said there was a situation where I was drawn and you had no idea what you were doing and you were meant not to know. But you revealed the truth to me and showed me the truth. He said several months ago. And he said from that moment on, I tried desperately to find you within spirit world. And he said, I never succeeded. He said, I heard something about something called a dome. I said, oh, the dome. So I explained the dome to him, and he laughed his head off. He was laughing and laughing.
Just a little note about what the dome is. Kuntarkis invented and created this dome in spirit world where he could put evil spirits in so they don't affect other beings in the spirit world.
He said, that is so brilliant. He said, doing that. He said, how did you accomplish such a task? And I said to him, Albert, I said, if you believe that was extraordinary, have you heard about the castle? And he goes, no. I said, well, it's not that far away, yet it is at the same time. But it stands 287 foot tall, 120 foot square base, up 85 feet, 100 foot square on top. But what is it? I said, it's a castle. And I couldn't manifest it into the physical world, even though I tried and tried and tried. I even asked my father, Yarkis Kardis, He said, I will get back to that one. I need to ask you a question. He said, please explain again. So I did. And I finished talking about the actual castle, and he just looked at me, gobsmacked. And he said, you know, he said, I tried so hard to teach you about quantum physics, and I wasn't allowed to. Every time I did a presentation, I could only go by the old way of thinking, by physics. If I mentioned the word quantum, it was totally not acceptable. He said they were very, very, he said, low in their thinking as scientists. And he said, sometimes it annoyed me, but other times he said, I felt privileged that I had the knowledge to understand more than just the physics. It was really interesting. And I said to him, do you mind, Albert, if I sit beside you? And he was sitting on a rock. And I sat beside him, and we just talked. We were watching this absolutely magnificent view of mountains behind. They're not like big mountains, but mountains with hills, a massive lake. I don't know if the lake had any connections anywhere else. All I could see was this one massive lake that looked like it could have been a kilometer long and probably 3/4 of a kilometer wide. It was massive. And it had heaps and heaps and heaps of ducks. It had quite a few black and white swans, which was absolutely incredible. And we spoke about the swans, we spoke about the ducks, you know, we spoke about the universes. And he asked me a question. He said, do you believe that there is more than just one universe? I said, absolutely. He said, what do you believe? And I said, there are trillions of universes. There are billions of planets within those universes. And I said, there are millions of different intelligent life forms within also those universes and those planets. And he looked at me and smiled, and he said, thank you. He said, I used to tell people there was multi-universes, but no one ever believed. I said, that's really sad. I said, the one person that would have believed was Nikola Tesla. He said, yes, I only ever met Nikola Tesla, but he said, not really. I said, that's very sad. Now, when did Albert Einstein pass away? Do you know?
I can look it up if you don't mind.
If you, I'm just curious, because he never finished explaining something to me, so I'm not sure what he meant.
Yeah, date of death was 18th of April, 1955.
Oh, then he would have met. He would have met then. If he said he met only once, he would have met Nikola Tesla. Because Nikola Tesla, I think, died in. I think it was it 1947 or earlier? Could you look that one up, mate?
Yeah, Tesla died in 1943.
Okay, 1943 during the Second World War. So he had the possibility of actually meeting Nikola Tesla. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. He did ask me a question. He said, have you, in your spirit time, ever come across Nikola Tesla? I said, absolutely. And I explained about the book. And I explained about the second book, The Dream Assassin, Volume 1 and 2, and how I've literally put him in both books, and how a character by the name of Mystical Man recreated him and manifested him through living energy. And the eyes widened up when I said living energy, by the way. And I said, then I did the same in the second book, where he actually ran many shows. And also went back in the time of Nikola Tesla and went back in his time and did a massive show in New York City. He was fascinated, absolutely fascinated by it. He asked me quite a few questions about those two books and why I did it and how did I get the information. And I explained to him through dreams. And he looked at me and he said, I have never, ever told anyone this, but a lot of my inspirations in what I received and then put out to the general public or to the scientific world came from my dreams. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Came from his dreams.
Mm.
So a lot can come to us, Michael, through our dreams, because it's all living energy.
It's all living energy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I felt the pull, and I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Einstein again." He looked at me and smiled. I said, "I am being pulled away. I have to go." And he looked at me and put his hand out and touched me, and I was gone. And I remember waking up, and it was 7 minutes past 4 in the morning. Yeah, so it was a really, really good experience. Lovely.
Yes, and he remembers more than you do how you helped him and even helped him realize he's in the Charon. Is that right?
Yes, he's in the Chiron. Yes. A lot of the people in the scientific world apparently have some connection or strong connection to the Nikaron civilization because they're here to help. And a lot of them are still the entities from when the first 100,000 entities came to Earth as light beings to evolve back, like retard back into physical existence, because they knew what would happen. That, the first 87,000 that were placed here 928,000 years ago would eventually come into contact somewhere in evolution, and they did. So they've been helping. Yeah.
I'm still confused. When they devolved, like descended back from say fifth dimensional beings all the way back to physical beings, did they land with a physical body, or did they then incarnate into?
No. When they first came here, it was a long, long time in years before they regressed back and became physical. It's a process that you have to go through.
Yes, but in the end, how did they land? They didn't then get born. They were actually a physical body.
No. When they came here, they came as beings of light. And they were here for a long time before they came physical. And they were within the Earth's vibration.
Yes.
And they literally became physical through their living consciousness in creating a physical body through the regression stage.
Sure.
And I've gone into that, and I can understand that reality is 100% true.
Wow. So they all make each other 20-year-olds, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like us. Like if you can evolve in higher vibrations in one lifetime, why can't you then also, through your own living consciousness, regress into a lower form of being physical? Once your consciousness has evolved, that consciousness will always be within your cellular memory. And it will always spark off some form of truth as you grow more consciously or through experiences. It's a part of evolution.
Sure. Are you curious? Like, did you find out more about the connection with Einstein?
I haven't done that yet, mate. No, I've had a very busy morning. I've spent 3.5 hours actually proofreading because I wanted to get a lot more done.
But he says it was actually kind of recent, like that it happened for him and you.
I would say so. I would say so. It's been very recent that he has had that. How would you say that? That recognition. Yes.
Oh wow, that's really special.
Yeah, it is special, mate. Very, very special, especially with someone like Albert Einstein. And he asked me. He said when I mentioned that those terms, and he was saying similar ones. He said, "Where did you get them?" I said, "Oh, I just got that because I've read them in different little episodes of different things. They've used your expressions, just like they've used Nikola Tesla's expressions, just like the government raided his place after he was murdered." And when I said that to him, he said, "What do you mean murdered?" And I explained how he had been given arsenic, which many were given arsenic back then on a very low proportion because of the imbalance within the human body. That's to keep it balanced to a point. But I said his doctor disappeared, and they gave him a new doctor who was a government doctor under Thomas Edison, who was actually a very bad man. And he said, oh. And I said they increased his dose. And eventually he died. He died in New York City in his apartment. He goes, oh. And I said, that's why we have a lot of the technology today, especially when it comes to microwaves, especially when it comes to magnetic energy that can propel disks at great distances. And he just looked at me with such curiosity when I was explaining it. Oh, when I told him about the mobile phone, he was fascinated.
Ah, yeah, okay.
He was fascinated. When I told him the hertz, 47 hertz or 45 hertz originally from the 4G phone, I had to explain that to him, what that 4G was. And then when I said to him they brought out the 5G and explained to him why they brought out the 5G, which is nearly double the hertz, it's very damaging and also very controlling of the nanotechnology that has been in COVID-19 vaccines worldwide. And I said over 75% or over 70% of humanity has been injected with nanotechnology and graphene oxide and other filaments of toxic poisons. And he asked me why. And I said, well, there's two reasons. One is to wipe out a very, very big percentage of humanity, more likely 90%. And he said, well, what would they do with the rest? I said, they would then control them through new biology or synthetic biology or artificial biology. And he had a very worried look on his face. He said, I'm going to incarnate again. And he said, I know also I'm going to be a scientist again. So he was very intrigued by it. So I believe when he does incarnate, if he does, that's going to be of great benefit to him in the knowing, because now that'll be lodged within his own cellular memory. Because I explained quite a lot about it. And I even explained who they were. And he said, I know them all. I've heard of them. I've never met any of them, especially the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. But I know what the Rockefellers are all about. But he always kept out of politics. He was never into politics. That wasn't part of his existence. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting being to talk to as Albert Einstein.
Yeah, it gives me the impression he has a very nice attitude. Good attitude.
He can be a little bit, I think, overwhelming to people who don't have a science understanding. Yeah, but he's actually, I actually found him a very kind person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a person that has a lot of curiosity too. Very, very strong with his curiosity.
That just you thinking about you connecting with him, and also Tesla makes me think of, oh, well, who else was there? Then I realize there's Amelia Earhart, right?
Yes, Amelia Earhart is another person, as you know, in the volume 1. That was a pretty deep thing, and they told me that's what happened. They told me that I can't remember the guy's name who was her navigator. Started Noel Newman or something like that. I'm not sure. I just can't bring it to my mind at the moment. But he was taken by the shark and he sacrificed his life for her. And she would have been taken by a shark because she was sinking under the water until this hand came down and actually took her and saved her life. So that was a being, which was very interesting. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure, but I got a really strong feeling that was Taikani who saved her being. I'd have to go back and look into it, but I got a strong feeling now that was Taikani. And he's the one that placed her on the island and created the island to what she would remember. And she was very much into bamboo. And that's why he created this sort of shack house, which was about a metre off the ground with stairs on the front and stairs on the back, open windows with bamboos that you could close and stop the weather from coming in. It was just built the way she liked it, because she came from a rich family, and it was very interesting, the whole thing. And I put all of it, the whole story. Yes, I added a bit of fiction into it to make it more interesting, but most of it was actual reality. How the plane got dumped and all that type of stuff. The plane is so deep within the Bermuda Triangle, it's not funny. And so is several other US like warships. There was a big aircraft carrier, battleships, lots of bombers and planes, other ships from people in the last, say, 40 years, even the 30 years, 20 years, that have sunk within the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, so it's going to make people think. Hey, if I ask you a simple question, mate, I want you to think about it before you answer. What are the two things that cause horrendous pain for a species that's trying to evolve? What are the two things that cause horrendous pain for a species that are in their own evolution?
You mean like annoying pain or physical pain? Just like it's like it's such a pain.
Actually, all of it. All of it. Right?
Unseen aliens that are intervening. I don't know.
Yeah. But more closer to home.
Okay.
More closer to home.
The ones that are greedy up the top, that are trying to have their way versus everybody's way.
Yeah. But you know what causes them to be the way they are to begin with? Would you like me to say?
Past conditioning, karma, fear. What is it?
You just said it. You just said negative emotions and reincarnation. If you look at it, reincarnation should be a positive thing. But because we are emotional negatively, and we don't look at our emotions or try to resolve our emotions, we take that with us into our next incarnation, which is reincarnation, and over again. And they are the two factors of existence to any species like humanity to overcome first before we can evolve consciously.
Yeah, I see that negative emotion that keeps reincarnating, that doesn't get overcome. That's the most painful thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
yep. And it's got many little how would you say, aspects to it, like many aspects to reincarnation and many aspects to negative emotion. But the two main factors that holds a being back from growing consciously is negative emotion and reincarnation. It's a very interesting factor. If we can overcome that, we can overcome anything. Yeah. Have you seen all the negative aspects of what they're saying about Trump and Elon Musk and Robert Kennedy, right, Jr. And they're putting all these people down in his parliament, and they're all paid. I think I've said this before, but they're all paid. They're doing it a lot recently on all of them, as much as possible, because that's the elite, because they're so fearful of what's happened. It's incredible. And I mean, just recently, Elon Musk with Donald Trump closed down 22 buildings, government buildings, and private industries, and shifted it all into one building, apparently, or two buildings, saving heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of money.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole concept, but that's what it is. And apparently the big negativity that's going around at the moment is about Elon Musk and Donald Trump using AI, mRNA, and something else, AI, mRNA, and something else to combat cancer. Right? And because there's turbo cancer at the moment, which is really bad, right around the world, mate, it's gone rampant. And in Japan, it's horrible, and many, many other countries, Swiss and all that. But in America, it's huge. And they're using these things to overcome the actual cancer. And everybody, and like there's so many people going negative about it, but they're not reading the whole story. They're not seeing the whole picture. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, very interesting, mate.
This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, find his website, which is etcconsciousness.com. He has articles there, he has his books listed there, and also if you have any reason to contact us in general for any reason, just email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.